Energy and the aura. What is the aura? Do people generate energy fields? People live in a sort of cloud all the time. That cloud is, to the eye of a psychic, a fine, translucent thing that shifts with colors and densities. Some clouds are brilliant, while others are dulled, and others can be very dark indeed. I've seen this countless times. I'll give you an example. Attending a lecture, watching the person on stage speak, watching their energy. Doing this practice is fascinating. When you're practicing relaxing, opening the third eye, allowing yourself to see energy, you begin by being present in the moment and then focusing your attention, energy, on another person. Begin by trying to spot the other person's energy signature, as these are easiest to see. All living things have an energy signature. What is not as widely known is that all so-called inanimate objects also have energy fields. Attending a lecture, if you're trying to spot another person's aura, is a really good place to begin. Why a lecture is a good place to go? Because there you're expected to be orientating your attention on another person, the person on the stage. You get two benefits from trying this in a lecture. One, you learn something, and two, get some practice seeing energy. People are very sensitive to the looks of other people. How many times have you felt something and looked around, right back at someone looking at you? Try it yourself. Look at somebody, and they'll soon look round back over at you. We can feel energy, though this is largely an unconscious process these days. Okay, so I'm sitting in an auditorium at a lecture. How do I begin to see energy? Begin by kind of relaxing your gaze, softening it. If you're short-sighted, take your glasses off so you aren't seeing all those hard edges of something. It's all softened into a blur. This is good as you shift attention away from the person's surface and begin to pay attention to what is also there, their energy. Allow your focus to diffuse, and now, with a softened gaze, almost like looking at nothing, look just past the person, at their edge and beyond. The first thing you'll notice is that the person appears to be surrounded by a white light. This light envelope appears very close to the skin. It's like a covering of light. With that aura of light, what that aura of light actually is the astral body, the light body. It's a tiny bit bigger than the physical body. This is the first thing usually that will come into focus for you as you begin to practice seeing. Next, you'll become aware of colors drifting around the person's figure. Studying another person so closely and attentively generally goes far past what would be socially acceptable. They'll feel that concentrated direction of energy, your attention, and be creeped out. But during a lecture, you're allowed and actually expected to be watching, directing energy at the person. Take the opportunity to listen to them, but also to practice seeing their energy. Beyond the white light layer, that shifting cloak of translucent color can get quite large, as big around as a person can put their arms out at minimum. The stronger the person's energy soul, the greater the energy field they can generate. This energy resembles clouds, translucent, constantly in motion, always in motion. Some people's auras are a single primary color with traces of secondary colors drifting through. Some have very definite color strata. For example, one person's head that I've seen was totally red, while the rest of his body was white. Some energy fields or auras around a person can appear very dulled and muddy looking. There are various reasons for this. Poor health is one. Another is an accumulation of old stuck energy. The person is holding on to a lot of things. Fears, regrets, old hurts, grudges, etc., worries. Generally, lower vibrational energies like fear, worry, and dis-ease manifest as a dulling of the overall energy signature. Some auras, on the other hand, are very brilliant. Some are predominantly one color, others have many colors. Every person's aura energy signature is as individual as a fingerprint. Something interesting was observing this lecturer speak. Abruptly, she moved across the stage to stand at another spot, and when she did, she literally burst out of this self-generated cocoon of light. As she strode across the stage, she was trailing clouds of semi-luminous strata of color from her body and limbs. Where she had just been floated the cocoon of colors she'd left behind. As she stood on the new spot, energy began to build up around her once more, while the shell she left behind was already beginning to break up and dissipate. It was enchanting to observe. What's happening here? These clouds are thought vibrations, representing a composite of thoughts, emotions, feelings a person or group is generating. Widening your viewpoint, one can see the same happening in the audience. Colors are floating up all around the people in the room as well. For older readers, it might help you to visualize if you think of the haze around the character Pigpen in the Snoopy cartoons. This is kind of how it is, except of course I'm talking about thoughts, which are actually energy. As you observe the audience, it's interesting to note how the colors that represent the energy are drawing to themselves colors of others. As this happens, the overall energy gains in coherence and balance. The idea of a mass mind is very real. There is a tendency of thought forces to constantly be attracting to themselves other thought forces of their own kind, just like how birds or fish group themselves. Each person is constantly creating their own thought atmosphere around them, and that, in turn, is constantly interacting with the thought atmospheres generated by others. It's exactly like the saying, people of the same mind tend to group together. This is how and why. It's energy, and like attracts like. People constantly generate these clouds of energy. Our third eye sees as light, or as dark. This energy is left behind when people leave and slowly floats away, dissipates. That is generally what happens. However, if a lot of very strong emotion, energy, is generated in any one spot, this creates a psychic imprint, which is why some battlefields, for instance, retain impressions of what happened then. This is also what some hauntings actually are, impressions left behind, not an actual being. That said, of course, there is more to hauntings than the simple explanation that they are all energetic impressions and nothing more, for of course, that isn't the case. But that's a subject we can touch on later. The stronger a person's soul and mind, the stronger the light of the thought, auric field they generate around them. This, incidentally, is why people who were thought of as gods were referred to as shining ones. They have extremely powerful souls, energy. Their energy fields are exceedingly well grounded. They thus generate dynamic energy, which people literally see as light around them. This is because the god is fully aware and present in any given moment. A god's highly focused field has considerably more coherence than one of ours, someone who isn't aware. It's like a magnetic gravitational field, and this energy is very stimulating to ours. It will resonate in all our chakras, but most particularly in our lower chakras, the ones expressly involved with physicality, as this energy field is a direct manifestation of living energy. And we can have a very definite reaction to that, which is we get aroused. If you are trying to make contact with one who is as a god and suddenly feel powerful physical energy that resonates in your lower chakras as sexual energy, rather than feeling embarrassed or ashamed, like it's something not appropriate to feel, Instead, take it as authentication that your living energy has made a contact with theirs. This is affirming that the people we think of as gods are real, living people in a physical body. Astral entities don't possess this energetic power. And this is why we're more powerful in a physical body than without one. This is also why the monotheistic religions are so down on sex, because it's a powerful life energy. Sexual energy is a very coherent and focused energetic field. It's the force that creates a new life. This is why orgasm can naturally clear and clean your chakras. It's like a blast of light and energy scouring old deadwood away. It clears the channels. You've heard the saying, the power of suggestion. This is also a power of the mind and soul. It pertains to utilizing your thought energy as a tool, focusing another person's point of perception on something you've created for them to see, a thought form, but one you have convinced them to accept, believe is true, and it thus becomes true. It can influence a person to react and to act as you wish them to. The power of suggestion is an energetic principle. It is an unseen and therefore occult power. We use this power all the time on others, albeit unknowingly. If someone does it for benevolent purposes, all well and good. However, unfortunately, people do it for other reasons and not always unconsciously. If you're practicing mindfulness, awareness, these Jedi mind tricks don't work. You'll see right through them. It's like that scene from Star Wars. We need to see your identification. You don't need to see his identification. We don't need to see your identification. These aren't the droids you're looking for. These aren't the droids we're looking for. Move along. Move along. Move along. And Luke is absolutely amazed. How'd you do that? This is how. I recall once sitting in a public space and a young man entered. He had boiling dark energy clouds around him that were constantly discharging lightning. Made me very uncomfortable. Nobody else sensed anything off about this man, but I felt it and so retreated to a private area. Sure enough, not long after he'd entered the space, he exploded violently for no apparent reason. Snatched up a chair, smashed it into splinters, yelling abuse at the room, then stalked out. Everybody else was taken totally by surprise and shocked by this apparently out of nowhere behavior. But because I'm aware of energy, I saw it coming and got out of the way. This is why I talk about how it's important to be mindful of yourself and others. What thoughts you're feeding yourself, what kind of energy you're putting out. You're constantly affecting the people around you in positive or negative ways, but even more than that, thought energy tends to attract its like. So, if you're angry, negative, hateful, resentful, and full of rage, you'll attract the same and, for example, have a nasty encounter with some jerk or worse. If you're not present, mindful, and unaware of this energetic reality and how it works, you'll think the negative encounter that just happened to you happened randomly, but it actually didn't. In a yoga room, I've noticed the same thing as in the lecture hall. Clouds of thought energy left behind by yogins, floating up around the ceiling, gathering in the corners. These were mostly shades of blue, very light, translucent, also bits of darker colors, old stuck energy that had been released. These naturally dissipate. You'll find that any space where people practice yoga all the time will have a peaceful and clean kind of an energy. This is why. Because people are practicing mindfulness, as this is what yoga is about. And also yoga loosens stuck energy and releases it. It clears old energy out. I find during a yoga class, as you begin to relax into the practice, the third eye will begin to open up naturally. So that around halfway in, as I look around at others in the room, their auras begin to become apparent. First, you'll see that familiar white glow visible a couple inches above the skin. And then later, as you get more used to seeing, you'll begin to get glimpses of the colors I'm talking about. These will become easier to see over time, and the more energy you put into trying to cultivate the talent. Auras are most easily seen in low lighting out of direct sunlight. You can practice seeing where people are relaxed, doing their own thing, and their attention is on the person leading the group. This is what you're sensing when you say how the atmosphere in a room is really charged or light or heavy and oppressive. This is the effect of the composite thought field of the people in the vicinity. This field can even be felt as one drives through a neighborhood, for example. Even a city gives off an atmosphere. So does a country. Similar-minded thought fields tend to coalesce. This, incidentally, is why we tend to reincarnate in soul groups. Birds of a feather flock together. I was heading home one afternoon, passing through a large crowd of people gathering in the streets to watch a hockey game on a jumbotron. I got through just in time before the police put up barriers as the crowds were getting so thick you couldn't easily pass through anymore. The ambiance was very foreboding. I thought, gods, feels like a riot is going to break out soon. I found out later on I was quite right about that, as indeed, an hour or so later, a massive riot broke out in that crowd. They went on a rampage of flipping cars, breaking windows, setting fires, and so on. If you're sensitive and in the moment, it's possible to feel the potentiality of events like these before they happen, just by the energy people are generating, which gives you the option to get out of there. When I say be in the moment, I mean practicing awareness, being present, not walking around in a daze with your nose buried in your cell phone. These technologies, while they can be handy, are also major distractions. You have only to look around to see this. People might as well be zombies for all the awareness and presence they're exhibiting. Turn those things off and put them away. Especially when you're out on a date with someone for, say, lunch or dinner. Be present with the people you're supposed to be spending that time with. Give them the courtesy of your full attention. Same if you're getting your hair done. Put the damned phone away. The person cutting your hair has spent a lot of time learning their skill. Let them practice it. Do you have any idea how hard you're making their job when they're trying to work around that cell phone cupped to your ear? It's actually quite disrespectful and annoying, even though the hairdresser is too polite to say so. Plus, they don't want to lose the business. They might not say it, but they feel the resentment. You are affecting the energy of others by what you do. Be mindful. It's energy you're putting out, generating. The tweets and texts can wait. When you're out and about, make it your practice to pay attention to the real world. Put the virtual world aside for that length of time. You can use that time to practice being present, aware, practicing this kind of sight. Why would you want to do this? Because it can be a very handy ability to have. It might even save your life one day. High Priestess, ZolaLuckyStar, Truth for Satan Ministries. My wisdom is not separate from my heart. Satan.